Welcome to this week's edition of Shop Talk. I am your host, Riley Bowman, and today I'm pleased to describe for you what I have here on the table, which is the new P365XL. And I also have the P365, the original version, sitting here. Although it's got a little bit of an upgrade to it. It's got the Gray Guns grip module that I added after the fact, aftermarket, right, which is really cool. But we're going to ignore that fact. It's going to have zero bearing on these two guns as I compare them. But we've got the original. We're going to be mostly looking at some of the key differences between the P365 and the P365XL. I was really excited about the XL when I heard about it being announced, but I also had some of my reservations, and I'm going to cover all of that here today for you. Really excited to talk about and break down the P365XL. You see I've got some magazines lined up here. That's kind of a fun way of showing sort of the evolution between these guns and the series of guns and the magazines that are available for them. So we'll get into that stuff as well here. So this is a Facebook Live that I'm filming this with. So I will be addressing comments and questions that come in on the comments here on Facebook as I go through this. So it'll be a good time. Thanks for joining everyone here on the live feed. For those of you watching after the fact, if you want to see any of our other past Shop Talk episodes, we have the entire archive available on our website at concealedcarry.com/shoptalk. All right, so you can see all kinds of videos from me discussing trigger control and sights and all kinds of topics, holsters and belts and just general concealed carry information, legal stuff, tons of stuff that we've covered in the Shop Talk, which is just a separate series from what I do each week on the Concealed Carry podcast. Anyway, today, again, I'm giving you my first initial report on the P365XL, which I have here. I just arrived the other day. I contacted Phil Strader at Sig Sauer, who is the product development manager, and yeah, I'm buying the gun. So I just said, Phil, send me an XL as soon as you can. I'm going to be paying you guys money for it, I know. So yeah, I just was really excited about getting it in my hands. I knew whether I liked it or not, I was going to end up owning it because I really like the P365 series. We call it a series now, obviously, because it now has more than just the one model. I love the concept behind the 365. I love the gun. Generally, are there a couple things about it that could be a little bit better in my world, in my view? Yeah, of course. But that's true of every pistol that I've ever owned or handled or shot. But I think as a concept, as a gun, it is an awesome, awesome gun and a really great platform, especially for concealed carry. One of the knocks that I had on the P365 in the beginning was that it's small, right? And it's intended to be small, but I almost felt like it was a little bit too small. The remarkable thing is that for as small as a gun as it is, it still packs 10+1 rounds right from the factory. No additional aftermarket add-ons, extended base plates, anything like that. And that obviously was the big thing that drew me to the P365, like a lot of other people, because it's such high capacity, it's such a small package. And nobody else had achieved something quite to this level before. I mean, we had precursors in the Glock 43 and the Shield and all of that, right? We could even go back to some of the original releases of some of the Kel-Tec guns that are pretty similar in size, package, and even some of those guns got close to, I mean, some of those guns actually have 10 rounds or even more. We could even look at the, what's another one that I'm missing? Oh, the Taurus PT-111, right? Which is similar in size. It's still a little bit bigger. Actually, it's quite a bit bigger in some of the dimensions, but came with 10 or 12 round capacity. But this just took it to a whole new level. They crammed more rounds in a size that people didn't think we could do it and made a very, very small, nice, compact gun that, here's the big thing for me. And if you read my review available on our website, concealedcarry.com, and a short link to my review is concealedcarry.com/P365 review, I think is the link. If you check out my review, you'll see that I talk about, I think more than once, how I love that it's this little gun, but it shoots like a bigger gun. I don't know what it is. I have confidence shooting this thing, even from early on, even from not necessarily having run a lot of rounds through the gun. Early on, even from the beginning, I had a lot of confidence in hitting targets that, or even shooting at larger targets at speed that I normally wouldn't do with such a small gun. Stuff that I was doing stuff with this gun that I had never done with the, say, Glock 43, for instance. So that was really intriguing to me. So I've referred to it a number of times as the little gun that shoots like a big gun. And here's the thing about the XL coming and joining the party is that yes, it's a little bit bigger than the 365 original, but it's also like the little gun that shoots like an even bigger gun than the original P365. And so that is really, really awesome to me. I've just had this for a few days now. I've put an initial battery of tests, or run it through an initial battery of tests and testing some ammunition through it so that I could, excuse me, so I could feel confident in carrying it. And I have been carrying it now for a couple of days. So let me start to break this down for you. Take a quick look at the comments though, before I continue. Let's see. Yeah, and Stephanie, they just released or announced the P365 SAS, or the SIG anti-snag, I think is what that stands for, which removes your protruding sights and other controls on the pistol, which is a really interesting concept. I mean, back in the day, back in like, the 90s and stuff, when concealed carry wasn't quite as big as it was today, and I think some of your concealed carriers were really serious concealed carriers, like either they're undercover police or agents of some kind, and you would see guns that were designed, and a lot of times aftermarket, modified to remove sharp edges and corners and protrusions, and even making the controls slimmer and all kinds of stuff like that, because I think that was just more of a thing back then. And the SAS kind of brings some of that back a little bit, and I'm intrigued by that concept. About I don't really see anybody else out there that's quite come to the table with a new product designed quite like that SAS. It's interesting. I think it's a fairly limited, it's a specific use case is how I see it. So anyway, all right, P365XL. I'll say my first impressions were putting it in my hand, and we see that, by the way, so you guys know, we are 100% here clear. All right, we got nothing in the gun. My magazine's over here, no ammunition on the table, of course. The next time I pick that up, I'll show you that the P365 is clear as well. So I may be a little more, what's the word? I may be a little bit flippant at times with how I handle this, partly because I want to show you some things, and also because it's actually really hard to hold on to this thing as I'm trying to do this at a table and describe it for you on the camera. So the first thing is, you see that we've got this I say much, it really isn't that much bigger than the P365 original. If we really look at it, let's focus on the grip first. I was really surprised when I picked it up. It fit the hand very nicely. I was frankly, I expected it to fit better, obviously. I expected it to feel good in the hand, but it fit and felt even better than I expected. And I think that's for a couple reasons. The obvious one, initial reason, is that the grip length is longer, so I'm able to get a full purchase with my pinky finger there, which is helpful. And even as I join the hands for a two-handed grip, there's just a lot more to hold on to. I'm able to get more of the meaty part of my palm in here as well on that grip there. So that's really helpful in shooting it and managing the recoil. So that's the first obvious thing. But the less obvious thing is that you'll see the magazine well here has actually got a little bit of a flare there. Okay, so it's actually flared slightly, and both from an internal, actually that mag won't fit. From an internal point of view, we have a little bit of flaring there, so that it makes it a little bit easier for the magazine to get into the gun. But it flares on the outside as well slightly, and that's very slight and very subtle, but I actually find that to be somewhat helpful as I'm gripping the gun. I can just feel there's just a little bit more going on there, but I don't find that it necessarily detracts a whole lot in terms of its concealability. And that was one thing when I first became aware of the gun and looked at it closely. and saw this little bit of flaring going on here, I thought, ooh, is that going to impact concealability much? And I haven't found that to necessarily be true. Now, granted, I'm a fairly big guy. I wear larger clothing, so I definitely have some advantages as far as hiding guns around my person, I think. So, but again, I haven't noticed anything here. Now, let me get back to the original P365. Again, just to show you that this is clear. All right, so we got no ammunition here or hanging around anywhere. I guess there we go. We have another iteration of magazines there. We've got all the variations now on the table. So my favorite carry configuration for the P365, oddly enough, has been with the flat flush magazine base plate. Why? Because for me, generally, I have found the way I carry a gun, I'm either going to go with a slightly larger gun because I want the bigger grip, the bigger gun to hang on to. It's a little bit easier to shoot, a little bit more controllable, longer sight radius, all that stuff. And I am dressing in such a way, or my activities are such that I can get away with carrying that much bigger gun. This fit the void of those times where I need to be a lot slimmer profile, a lot lower profile in terms of the defensive gun that I'm carrying. And when I carried this with the 12-round mag, while it's still very concealable, and I really don't have much problem with carrying it with the 12-round mag, I just found, hey, it's just another step, just a little bit more of a step up for me to carry an even bigger gun with, say, 15-round capacity from this 12-round grip length. So there was times I'm like, well, if I'm going to carry this, then I'm carrying it because I want the lowest profile I can get. And it certainly accomplishes that. I mean, this thing is easy to conceal. There's no problems at all with carrying the P365 with this flush fitting 10-round magazine. So that's the configuration I've carried around in the most. And I know a lot of people don't like that because they don't get as much of a purchase on the grip with their fingers and their hand. I find I can get about half of my pinky on the grip of the 10-round flush fitting mag. So, and this is still very shootable for me. Now, even if I don't get a full 3-finger grip on that, by the time I get my support hand here mated up on the gun and I'm applying a little bit more pressure with this ring finger now, I could still shoot this very well, right? Is it as controllable as a little bit bigger gun? No, but that's not the expectation. The whole reason I would carry this is for its low profile, so ultimate and concealability, right, purpose, as opposed to necessarily carrying the gun that's the most ideal one for me to carry and shoot. But I found even with the 10-round mag, it was still very easy for me to still shoot this at an acceptable accuracy rate. Now, a lot of people would go with the, dropped stuff all over here, with the 10-round mag with the slight extension, pinky extension, and I just didn't find that it really did a whole lot for me. Yes, I could get a little bit more purchase on the gun. Oddly enough, I found with this configuration, there's almost like a little sharp point here that would kind of dig in my palm when I shot it. That didn't seem to exist when I was using the flush fitting 10-round mags. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But again, I just didn't feel like this really was enough of a benefit for me to run it with this configuration as opposed to the 10-round flush fitting mag. So back to the 12-rounder. This definitely feels really nice in the hand, and it increases its shootability, I think, quite a bit. But I just found myself usually carrying the 12-rounder as a backup magazine and carrying the flush-fitting 10-round. So curiously enough, we have the XL come out, and let me get the standard 12-round magazine for the XL in here so we can compare these apples to apples. And so what we'll see when we get these two guns side by side is that they're basically the same size. And if I was actually getting really nitpicky about it, the 12-round mag might even almost extend just a little bit more than the standard 12-round flush-fitting magazine with the XL. But basically, it's the same size, same grip length, and we're getting 12 rounds here and 12 rounds here, right? So I know there's a lot of people out there that saw the XL come onto the market and go, well, that doesn't really make a whole big difference to me when I can just run a 12-round mag with the extension here for the pinky and all that. And, you know, this is basically the same size gun, a little bit shorter barrel. The barrel doesn't really do a whole lot for me as far as being shorter or whatever, because that's inside of my pants anyway, inside the holster. It's not adding or taking away from concealability or really even comfort for that matter. So the barrel length on the XL, I think, is really nice. In fact, one of my knocks on the original 365 was that I felt like they almost went too short on the barrel length of the P365. I felt like it could have been a little bit more on par with the Glock 43 or even the Shield, and even just 0.1, 0.2 inches longer, I would have been okay with that. So now, would that do a whole lot in terms of velocity with my chosen carry rounds? Not necessarily. And yeah, there's the extended sight radius, which arguably is, you know, not enough of a difference to make that big of a difference. But I think that now extending this barrel about a half inch or so, I think it's 0.6 inches technically, just over a half inch. I think this is quite a bit easier to shoot accuracy-wise, at least for me. As I see the sights, I feel like the sights, you know, the further we get this front sight away from my eye, from my hand, and from this rear sight, because the notch on both sight systems, on the original and on the XL, is basically the same width. And the further we extend this front sight, it gets a little bit narrower in our perception. And for me, I like to have a little bit more room between the front sight and the rear sight notch, as far as on those sides. For me, I feel like I'm able to see what I need to see and make sight adjustments a little bit better and faster when I have just a little bit more room, as opposed to the front sight really filling up the whole notch. That may just be true of me and how I like to see the sights, but for me, this has been quite I shouldn't say it's not 100% better, but it's noticeably better. Granted, I'm a pretty picky shooter. I know what I like. I shoot a lot. I've got quite a bit of experience under my belt, but for me, the sights on this gun are better. Now, I did a shop talk a few episodes ago where I talked about sight radius and used math to explain the difference that it can make in potential accuracy. The accuracy of the gun between these two guns, if we were to stick these in a ransom rest, I doubt it would be negligible as far as the inherent accuracy differences between these. I think they're probably pretty close to the same. Barrel length really doesn't necessarily do a whole lot for accuracy, but what can make a difference is a little bit longer sight radius. And the reason for that is because with a longer sight radius, slight deviations that the eye recognizes between the front and rear sights, that becomes easier to see with, or at least the same. So when we get really short with sight radius, a slight deviation may not be as noticeable on a sight radius of this length. We get a little bit longer and we can see those differences a little bit easier, or at least when we begin to see the out of alignment of our sights, it means the gun hasn't quite moved as much. The longer we increase this distance, the less the gun needs to move in terms of being slightly out of alignment with the target before we recognize that, oh, hey, I've got to adjust things slightly. Does that make sense? So the extended sight radius on this, I think, is helpful. Of course, big difference between these two guns is we have the milling that's already done on the XL, which is going to allow for either a Shield RMSC or the new Romeo Zero red dot optic to be able to, this is ready from the factory to be able to mount one of those optics right on the gun, if that's the way you want to run it. I do have a Romeo Zero on its way from the factory to put on the XL here and test that out and see how it goes. I'm excited for that, and I'm really curious to see how the Romeo Zero will hold up. Early reports from other people that I know are generally positive. I'm really excited to see for myself. So this is going to be a really interesting concealed carry piece with optic, a little bit easier to hold on to, more shootable, all that stuff. I'm really excited about it. The trigger we know is different. We got the flat trigger here, curved trigger here. I'm a believer of the straight trigger. I like straight triggers because I can place my finger anywhere on that trigger shoe and it still functions generally pretty well. Whereas with a curved trigger, you really only get one option. It's harder to get down lower on the trigger and get more leverage because the curve of the trigger kind of changes the geometry of things. So I like the fact that we now have the straight trigger as a factory standard option. I guess really not so much an option, like this is how the XL comes. If you don't like that, you can certainly take the trigger from a P365 or order one, a curved one, and swap it out. That's the one thing that I appreciate about the P365XL is internally, it is pretty much the same gun as the P365 original. And in fact, as I'm going to demonstrate for you here on camera, I've just disassembled the original one, get the magazine out there, and here's the XL, and we can take the XL and throw it on the original. Okay, and we can take the original slide and throw it on the XL grip module. Super easy to take down and reassemble. Don't have to pull the trigger. I think that is nice. And so now we have a P365 original slide and barrel mounted onto the XL grip, and it works. It works. Everything functions just the same. So really, really, really cool being able to do that and really configure the gun how you want to configure it. Again, here with the original P365 grip module and trigger, so the lower with the XL upper, totally functions, works great. Now, this might look a little odd to some of you, but you know what? If I wanted that extended sight radius, or if I wanted to be able to run this easily with the red dot, but yet have the ultimate in concealability in terms of that nice, short, concealable grip, well, I could run it in this configuration. And again, I like options. Options are awesome. So that's a lot of fun. Now, again, you do notice that this is a Gray Guns aftermarket laser stippled grip module, which is awesome. I highly recommend these. It just gives you a little bit more to hold on to. You get some stippling up in these areas that, you know, where my support hand likes to mate up on the gun, and I just get a little bit more dig into the grip for controllability. As soon as Gray Guns releases a laser stippled version of the same thing for the XL grip module, I will be picking one of those up because I just really love them. So anyway, yeah, I mean, this is a really, really cool gun. Let's go to the comments again here. Someone asked, what SIG don't I love? Oh man, good question. Yeah, that's a good point. Now, everyone's familiar with some of the issues the original P365 had from its inception and its launch, as far as some reliability challenges, some striker issues, striker drag or primer drag, as is sometimes referred to. And a lot of, at least the primer drag has been fixed in this longer gun. You got a longer gun, a little bit more weight on the slide and barrel. So that, I think, slows down the cycling of the gun, keeps things locked up a little bit longer. And that, I think, is what's making the big difference in reducing the primer drag to almost nil on the XL. So if you think that's an issue, I didn't find it to be necessarily an issue. I have like almost 4,000 rounds through this P365 original, and it's still running strong. And it's an early model too. Like, I think it was manufactured in April or something of last year. Maybe it's May. Yeah, I think it was like the first week of May, now that I think about it. And so people were breaking strikers and blaming it on the primer drag and all this stuff. And I still have an original gun, original striker. I've had very good luck in terms of reliability with the gun. And I have 2 of these, actually, and they've both been really solid guns. I fired over 5,000 rounds through my P365s. But a lot of those concerns, if they were in fact concerns for you, I think have been addressed in the XL. I have seen some internet reports of some issues with going into battery on the XL. I have not yet experienced that yet. I'll let you know and keep you apprised of that as I progress through testing the gun some more. One channel, I think it was on Harry's Holsters, actually talked about 124 grain maybe giving it more of an issue than maybe standard pressure 115 grain. I've tested some 124 grain and haven't had any issues there yet either. I'm just a couple hundred rounds into testing of the XL though. So, but it's been 100% so far. So let's see, what other comments, questions? Let's see. Yeah, Stephanie loves P365, but shoots the 320 compact better. I mean, I think that's true of anything, right? Like, there was a time I loved the Glock 43 because it was a good, solid, reliable gun in a small package, and I also loved my Glocks, and still like those guns very much. But the where was I going with that? Oh, but of course I'm always going to shoot the larger Glock better than the smaller one, right? Same is true here. I mean, we shouldn't lie to ourselves and say, hey, you know, like I'm going to be able to shoot this as good as I shoot this other larger gun. That's just generally not going to be the case. I will say, and again, I've got things kind of confusing here because I have the P365 mounted on the XL grip module, but my experience so far shooting the XL is that when I used to, how I've commented in the past about the P365 being the little gun that shoots like a big gun, the P365XL is like the little bit bigger gun that shoots like an even bigger gun. The XL, I think, is about as shootable for me in my hands as a Glock 19 or a P320 compact. And that's remarkable. Now, speaking of which, speaking of comparing it to those longer guns or bigger guns, let's talk real quick about capacity. Maybe I swap these back over so it's not as confusing as I try to talk about one gun and compare it to the other. I know I'm working on the glass table here, which can be a little bit noisy, but let's see here. All right, get that swapped back over. So now we have the XL slide and barrel upper mounted onto the XL grip module. And here we will get the original back on its, well, sort of original, since it does have the aftermarket grip module. But anyway, you get what I mean. All right, so the XL standard 12-round capacity, that's awesome. My personal opinion is that for a primary carry gun, I like to have at least 10 rounds capacity. This exceeds that. In fact, the base model P365 meets that standard, which is another reason why I was so intrigued with the original P365, because small, super concealable gun, but still meets what I like to think of as my base standard or criteria for capacity of a primary defensive weapon. So 10 rounds, but 12 rounds here, so we get that step up. That's great. But a few months ago, SIG also released the 15-round option of magazines. And you might look at this and go, well, that's insane. That's just, you know, so much length there. And it is longer, right? But the reality is this length here, the height from the top of the gun here to the bottom of the magazine is just about this. It's a little bit longer than the Glock 19. And I don't know, I was going to bring in my P320 compact to also compare that. This is about the length of a P320 compact. So that gives you a sense of about how long this is, how big it is. 15-round capacity, it makes sense. It's about as long as a Glock 19 or P320 compact with 15-round capacity. This is 15-round capacity. So no biggie there. But what we get is 15 rounds in a lighter, thinner package that weirdly, I don't know how to explain this, but I've been carrying this around this weekend, and I spent more time carrying it concealed with the 15-round mag than I did with the 12-round mag. And it still was more concealable than my bigger guns with the same capacity. And I don't know, I mean, you wouldn't think that the thickness of a gun would make that much difference in concealability, because this length here, right, this is what generally sticks out of a shirt and prints. So I think part of what it is, I do run a holster that has a claw, and actually this is a holster that I made specifically for the XL, and it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of components, because I threw this together and realized I had run out of struts. I prefer loops, and I'd run out of struts. So I had plenty of loops, but no struts. So I like a two strut or two clip or two loop arrangement. So I threw on one clip and one loop. Kind of odd, but it works. But I had this claw here, And I think because of the weight of the gun and the thinness of the gun, like it's just a smaller gun. I think that this is able to torque things in almost a little bit easier than a larger, thicker, heavier gun. I think that's probably what's going on there. So, because this thing just disappears. I could stand up for you with this on me with a standard t-shirt, and you wouldn't know that I have this P365XL with a 15-round mag in it. It just disappears on my body. Whereas if I'm with a t-shirt and a Glock 19 or P320 compact, I sometimes have to be a little bit careful about how I carry and how I handle myself and the concealment of that gun. I think my camera just shut off. Let's see here. Stand by. Stand by. Sorry, guys. I don't know. I think this camera got disconnected from power or something. Yeah, that's definitely the issue. So you probably hear me, but you don't see, or at least the screen appears to be frozen. We'll get the power restored on this bad boy. Okay, we'll see if that comes back automatically. There we go. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. I think the power got disconnected from the camera. But we're back up and going. So, I mean, really, that's pretty much what I have to say. I mean, this thing shoots like a dream. I think the larger gun, the little bit more weight, the balance of it, the timing of it, because I think things are just slowed down. The recoil impulse is a little bit softer, slower even. And I do think that some people will really appreciate that because it'll feel a little different to you in the hands as you're shooting it. And therefore a little bit more controllable. So again, I think it aids to that. It just shoots like obviously shoots. It's a bigger gun than the P365, but it really shoots and handles for me more like a mid-size, duty-size gun. So that's really, really cool and really fascinating. But yet it's small, lightweight, and thin. Yeah, I don't know what more to say at this point. I'm going to get more rounds through it. I'm going to test it some more. Make sure that everything is functioning the way it should, and not just for a couple hundred rounds, but over a period, over the next few weeks here, I'll probably get 1,000 plus, maybe even 2,000 rounds through it, and we'll have a pretty good number, a statistically significant number of rounds through the gun to know that it's pretty much good to go as far as reliability. So far, it's proven to be good. Reliability and durability, and those two things are really important. Hopefully, we don't get any parts breakages or anything like that. Speaking of which, one thing that I did appreciate about the XL, and of course, this becomes more of a possibility when we go to a longer slide, but instead of the two-stage recoil spring and guide rod on the original P365, we have a single rod with a single spring on the XL. And I think that that's also a good thing. All right, so I like that. I like seeing that. I think that'll aid somewhat in reliability. And again, the timing of the gun and everything I think is such that as far as I've had, of the failures I've had on the P365, they tend to skew a little bit more to failures to extract a shell casing from the chamber. And I'm thinking that with the little bit slower timing of the XL model, we'll see less of that and also less of the primer drag. Again, for those of you that are concerned about the primer drag. So again, let's go to comments here and let's see. I need Riley's gun and ammo budget. My budget's tighter than you would think. And I do sell guns from time to time so I can purchase other guns. I hate having to do that, but I got a wife and 5 kids, mouths to feed. So, the nice thing, just full disclosure, is as a reviewer and having the channel and the access that I have with the Concealed Carry podcast and concealedcarry.com, is that I can get my hands on this, review it, demo it, and give you guys my input on it, and then choose to buy it from SIG at a reduced rate over MSRP. So that's helpful, at least. Ammo budget, though, that's always a tricky one. So I do shoot quite a bit, and it's expensive. All right, let's see here. So official MSRP, I think, is actually a little bit over 600. I think it's like 679 or something like that. But the street price, I think, will be around 575, 550. We've seen the P365 settle down, and now street price is 475 to 499, whereas the MSRP on this is 599. So basically, I think the MSRP is about $90 more on the XL, and we probably expect about the same with the street price ultimately as well, with the XL too. So just to give you a sense of where that's going to be in cost. So sorry about that, Ron. I should have mentioned the MSRP. I'll confirm that. If I find that it's different than the 679 or 689 that I mentioned, I will reply to your comment here. Let's see. Again, if you appreciate the content here on ShopTalk and everything we do here, concealedcarry.com, you can find the archived episodes of ShopTalk at concealedcarry.com/ShopTalk, where I've covered a myriad of topics. Let's see. Gordon likes the P938. It's not a bad gun. It's not my preference. So actually, there you go. That would be a SIG that I'm not that particularly fond of. Someone was asking me about what SIG don't I like. I'm not super crazy of the micro compact 1911 style guns. I'm just not. I don't think they really give you a whole lot in terms of advantage. Yeah, they're small, they're concealable, but my experience, they're not. And some of it has to do with the grips tend to be rather straight and square on them, and I prefer having a little bit more of a palm swell. They feel like there's even less to hold on to than something like this. Oddly enough, even though this is fairly small in terms of circumference, but we have that little bit of a palm swell, and I think something as small and simple as that actually makes a difference in holding and gripping the gun. Obviously, the 238 and the 938 have that single action trigger, which is nice, and I think that does aid in terms of accurate shooting. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the micro 1911. So there you go. Whoever it was that asked about SIGs I don't like, that would be one. Someone just buying an XL slide. Well, since we can actually, you can find I think Osage County Guns has the P365 slide and barrel available for sale separate. So I imagine that the XL will be the same way eventually. It might take a little while. Straight trigger, how hard to swap out? Depends on how skilled you are with mechanical type things and armor level work. To me, it's not that difficult to swap triggers, or even a lot. I mean, I've not actually attended the P365 armorer's course, but I am a certified armorer in a couple other gun platforms, including the P320, which is entirely different, but I'm also fairly mechanically inclined, so I can look at a gun, I know how to take it apart, work on it. It's not super complex, but I would not necessarily recommend that just anybody tear their gun down, especially to an armorer's level. But there are videos you can reference online, and of course, if you choose to do that, do it at your own risk, or hire somebody that's qualified to do it. Let's see. Charles says, I just don't see the point in the 365XL. If you're going to go bigger gun, there's a billion options. So here's the thing, Charles. Now, if I didn't make this very clear in what I was talking about, at the very beginning of the Shop Talk today, I said I had some reservations personally about if this was going to be just a little bigger than what I would want, right? I mean, you've got the P365, which is honestly, in my opinion, pretty much the ultimate in size and performance. To get smaller than this, you pretty much got to go to a 380 caliber gun, and a lot of those are very small and much harder to shoot. Not as good of guns for carry, in my opinion. So this is really, I think, in terms of size and performance value, 365 is a pretty good gun, pretty tough to beat in that department. This guy here is a little bit bigger. It is smaller than, say, a Glock 19 or a 320 compact, right? So where does this fit? And there was a part of me wondering if this was going to be kind of an awkward little stepchild that was like, it's too big to fit into this category. It's about as big maybe as those bigger guns, but just a little bit smaller. The reality is, I actually find this to be a little more on par with the P365 than with its bigger counterparts. And that actually speaks volumes. So again, going back to what I was saying a few minutes ago about, particularly with me carrying it in this holster of mine, it concealed really well, better than I expected, in fact. And so it's basically as good as the P365 in terms of concealability, but you get a bigger gun to hold on to that shoots easier, that has a better cycle, I think, to it. The handling of this as it shoots, it's just better. So it's easier to shoot, it's easier to be accurate with it. You got more meat to hold on to that honestly I think is a little bit more advantageous than the original with the 12-round mag extension. The other thing too is if you got big hands, meaty hands, I mean, I have pretty fat palms, but I actually have fairly short fingers, in case people didn't know that. It's a weird conundrum for me because there's times like I can't palm a basketball. You would think that I could at 6'3", but I can't. It's because my fingers are kind of short and stubby, but I have pretty meaty palms, right? So the challenge that creates for a lot of shooters on a gun of this size is that putting in a magazine, watch this here, it can be challenging because you can pinch your palm, your finger, or even it can be challenging to get that gun full or that magazine fully seated because you have to move your hand your shooting hand out of the way to get that in there and shove it in. So I would say that what the P365XL is the P365 that's a little bit better suited for somebody with a little bit bigger hands and build, right? That still conceals almost as good as the P365. And again, to be frank, there's a lot of people out there concealing the P365 with a 12-round mag anyway because they like it and they like the way it feels and they like the way it shoots. So why not have an option that gives you that same benefit in terms of grip and also even gives you a little bit more because of the overall size of the gun, the length of the slide and the barrel, for instance, that again, I can't understate or overstate enough. And I think I did understate the importance of that length and that increased weight makes this a better shooting gun. Now, interestingly enough, I've shot the Glock 43X and the Glock 48. And depending on who you talk to, a lot of people would say the 43X shoots better than the 48. The 48, again, having that longer slide, similar to how the XL compares to the P365 original. I felt like for me, the Glock 48 shot a little bit better than the 43X, but they were pretty similar. In my opinion, the P365XL shoots noticeably better, considerably better. Is it a lot? It's hard to put a percentage on it, but it's considerably, noticeably better than the P365 original. That's the advantage. That's the why. In a gun that's still 95% as concealable, in my opinion, as the original P365. That's going to be a really tough package to beat. But that's a fair point, Charles, you bring up, and others have made. So I'm going to probably wrap it up now. David commenting that I'm flagging the whole internet, flagging myself, flagging everything. I made it clear in the beginning, just for the sake of the video, we cleared everything, you know. If somebody's offended, I'm sorry. Move over Glock, Mark says. I think, now I haven't got my hands on for extended testing on the Glock 48. I hope maybe to be able to do that at some point to almost compare the two. There's plenty of other comparison videos out there, but I do think this is gonna be hard to beat. And here's the other thing. If we're comparing these to the 43, 43X, and the 48, this is still considerably smaller than the 48. Easier to conceal than the 48. And I think based on some other people's reports that I've heard, and also from my own experience shooting the 48 and the 365XL, I think this is a better shooting gun. Some of that, by the way, has to do with the stippling. I didn't really talk about stippling. Obviously, that has a custom one, and it's great. But SIG is doing a really great job with this stipple that comes standard on these 365 series guns. It is actually a really, really, really good stipple. The Glock 43X and 48 stippling is, in my opinion, not that good. So, and that's a big deal to me. Well, I know I've been sort of ignoring comments and stuff, but I really just wanted to kind of roll through this, and I knew I was going to be talking for a while, but there you go. That's what I got. Yeah, David sold his Glock 43 in a week after buying the 365. A lot of people, I think, have done that. Cool. And Sam confirms that he paid $575 for his XL. Yeah. Off topic, Stephanie. Yeah, it is off topic. So I'm actually not, just because of time, I'm sorry, Stephanie, I'm not going to address your question about the incident in Pennsylvania on the P320. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. I will go and reply to your comments, Stephanie, just so I get back to you on that. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode today, and that's just a little bit of a look in comparing the 365 and the 365XL from Sig Sauer. I'm really excited about the potential of this little gun here, what it means for the concealed carry market, and what it means for me personally. I think, I carried this a bunch last year, and that was partly to test it out, right? I did a very detailed review on the P365, put a lot of rounds through it, carried it a bunch, and I have no problem carrying that gun. But because I can carry a bigger gun and get away with it, and I'd rather shoot a, say, P320 compact, for the last number of months, I've been carrying a P320, especially the P320 carry/compact length slide in the X compact grip module, which is a really awesome combination. I am thinking that that's going to be really battling it out with the XL in terms of what I go to, because this is crossing that bridge between where this is small and that's great, but it's still not quite as shootable as a P320 compact. This is really about as shootable for me as a P320 compact, but with the concealability of the P365. That's going to be really tough to beat. So assuming this thing holds up and is reliable and true, then I think this is going to be in my carry rotation a lot more than what the P365 has for me in the last 6 months. Just to be frank with it. This will still find a purpose here and there when I need that ultimate concealability. And also I've started working this into my rotation as a backup and pocket carry gun for a few select situations. And it excels very well in that area, I think. This is not a pocket gun. I think this is a true everyday carry, nice shooting gun. There you go. That's my assessment. We're going to sign on out of here. Thanks for watching Shop Talk today, guys and gals. We appreciate you very much. Again, if you want to see other past episodes of Shop Talk, head on over to concealedcarry.com/Shop Talk. And it's in the description of today's video, but I didn't mention it. Appreciate you guys' support of us here at concealedcarry.com and the Concealed Carry Podcast. And one of the many ways that you support us, many of you choose to support us, is by, we don't do Patreon or anything like that, and we don't necessarily care to, and I don't think we ever will. But our version of that is if you want special members only access to special content and deals and all kinds of other great stuff, Guardian Nation is where it's at. You see the logo right there over my shoulder there. Guardian Nation, concealedcarry.com is the home of Guardian Nation. Guardian Nation is our members. That's our membership that exists here at concealedcarry.com. And if you'd like to try a 14-day free trial, go to concealedcarry.com/14day. concealedcarry.com/14day. Thanks again for watching today, guys. Take care out there. Be safe. We'll see you back here actually tomorrow, I believe at 12 noon Mountain Time, with a special interview with Brian Eastridge of EDC Belt Company, and also a heck of a shooter. So I'm looking forward to that. And later today, I will be on his podcast, a relatively new podcast called the Law Dog Shooting Sports Show. And it's a good podcast. I've been really impressed with what I've been hearing from Brian and also his co-host, Chuck. So anyway, we'll see you back here tomorrow, 12 noon Mountain Time. Take care.